You know what they say, good things come in twos and threes and, whatever. Anyways, 2 podcasts in 2 days. Congratulations. Feel honored. Vikings are back with Eagles, Chargers, and Falcons because there are some things about each other that we don't like, and you're going to hear about them. So, aptly named a pod roast. We're going to kind of go around room here, and people are going to get to mention things that either have annoyed them about the others, things that they didn't like about something else in either chat, league, trades, mock drafts, whatever. Everything's on the table. All I ask is that people keep it civil. Kind of sticking with the old rule: be nice or leave. So if people who are watching want to jump in and join because they've got things they want to add, drop me a DM and I can include you in. I can get up to 10 in here now. And, we're just going to have some fun, free flowing conversation, and, let the games commence. So before we jump into it, Brent, welcome back.
Nice
Man
to
of
see
the
you
few
as
words.
always. Which hotel room are you in now? Where are
One,
we at?
I'm always in good old Northern Connecticut. And RJ, eventful day?
Yeah, I've had a fantastic day.
And Matt will be right back. He had to go run a quick errand in his house, but he'll be joining us for this as well. So let's go ahead and start with what really blew up the chat this morning, and really, I think, give the need for a pod roast. So Eagles and I made a trade last night. They executed this morning. That basically, I sent out the 102 because, for all intents and purposes, that's what you need to get Zach Wilson in this draft. And as a response, I got a lot of things. Some might say that it was an overpay. Some might say that it's a major overpay. Some might say that RJ, woke up and accidentally chugged a bottle of vodka before he looked at whatever offers. That said, figure we give him a chance to explain himself. But beforehand, Brent, you had some thoughts on this. Why don't we let you start the roasting of the pod roast?
So I feel like I need to clarify that the Brenting, it's my name is Brett, which is why Brenting is a mockery of my name. So that's
very accurate.
Right. So I just, there's no N. God damn it. But anyway, yeah, I was really surprised to see that trade this morning. And it's one of those like, oh man, if anybody is gonna get such tremendous value for a player, a pick, does it have to be Mike? Does it have to? It could be like almost anybody else, and that would be fine. But I don't know. Pretty surprised considering RJ, considering that you're tanking and you're not going to be competitive this year. To see you give up so much for your guy this year when there are presumably quarterbacks that are going to be in the 2022 class.
They suck.
And not knowing where Wilson's going to land. I mean, I don't know. It would be hilarious if somebody takes him that all of a sudden it's not necessarily predetermined that he's going to start, year one.
That would help RJ, if anything.
I don't know. Well, okay, I would help him tank for this year, but it's just, it seems like an ungodly amount to pay without knowing landing spot, without considering the fact that you could put yourself in position to have a top 3 pick next year and take a quarterback next year, and it just sucks. Well, you don't know that the QBs suck next year.
Yeah, we do.
No, you don't.
Brett, the top-rated guy right now in some mocks plays for Texas fucking Tech.
Mm-hmm. And the other one's 185 pounds. And then the other one plays in North Carolina.
It's...
Where have we heard this story before?
I mean, look, his other point, or the other point this morning that...
you could trade for a quarterback who is... you could have sent that package for any other fucking quarterback in the league. You could have sent that for Kyler Murray, and I might have said, oh shit, I might as well fucking give you Kyler Murray for that shit. Because that's a lot. That's a lot of draft capital. That's a lot of points this year.
Yeah, but he doesn't want points this year. If points this year are bad in RJ's team.
Yeah.
So if he can consolidate all of those points this year, literally, because he's going to lose them at some point. So it's either try and sell them for quarters and dollars here and there over the space of time, which would then possibly could fuck around and end up winning a game, or he trades them all now at a relative discount and gets his guy, and then sucks absolute ass this coming season.
I don't
And
know
it just
that
builds
you've
that way.
retained enough. I mean, especially things like including the 2022 first,
Mhm.
where I don't know that you've retained enough assets to have a team around Wilson. You've moved so many young pieces that could have helped you. I don't know that the pick increase that you've given yourself for 2022 by being absolutely dogshit terrible and having no other pieces on the team makes up for all of the young, like moving Jerry Jeudy, moving the 120, moving the 2022 first. These are all young pieces that can be part of a rebuild that
Oh,
you
yeah.
sent away for
RJ's
one
problem.
person.
The only aging player I realistically sent away was Zadarius Smith, and he was probably like the lowest value piece in the deal as far as players are concerned.
No, the cornerback is probably lower than that,
Oh,
but
yeah,
yeah,
there
close.
was a corner.
There was a corner.
Maybe.
I don't know. I
So-
mean, well, yeah. Go ahead.
Do I explain how it happened or what ultimate? I mean, I guess it all kind of just rolls into one. So, I've had interest in the second pick for a month or so. Ever since it got moved the first time, I didn't really know it was on the market. But when Vikings got it, I was able to like I know I can make deals with particular people. So we outlined the idea of a trade of what would be an acceptable deal for the 1-2 or the 102, which I was completely fine with paying. It wasn't anything that happened. It wasn't anything similar to what actually happened. And then I went on my way trying to trade for picks. I made an offer to every pick from 6 to 18, 14.
Are we counting verbal offers?
Yes.
Okay.
And they were all relatively the same. So the same one that I offered you was roughly the same thing that I offered for everybody. Slight deviations for value decreases and increases. Nobody wanted to move any of those picks. So I was at a point where I still wanted the 102, and I couldn't acquire the necessary picks in this draft to make that happen. So I approached Mike and told him that I wasn't going to be able to give him the picks. Would he just like the players that I was offering? Wasn't overly fond of that idea, so I offered his first, and that opened the door. And then I just threw a shitload of picks at him, so he couldn't turn it down.
Make him an offer you can't refuse.
Exactly. It was a player that I want, and now I am in the driver's seat to have the assumed Zach Wilson pick and a, I don't know, top 3. Ideally, the first pick next year. So yeah, I might not have the assets to quickly build a competitive team, but I will have another pick that is. It won't be Zach Wilson value next year, but it'll be a relatively decent value that I could move out of since I already have my quarterback of the future.
Yeah, I mean, if it's if it ends up being 101, and if the QBs continue to play out like they're projected to, like I cannot emphasize enough how gross next year's QB class is. Brett, can you name me the third QB in next year's draft?
Who are your first 2?
No, Brett.
Oh.
I assume he knows Hal.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2 is Googling is cheating.
No,
You can do
I
this.
know this. You're just catching me after I've had, you know.
I'll give you
reasonable
2
amount
is
of-
Rattler. But
See,
three
that's
is
what I was thinking was going to be third. So, I mean, Howe is obviously one. I mean, there's nobody. There's I don't know.
there's Clovis,
Uwe.
there's Slavis, or whatever the fuck the dude's name is.
Bryce
There's
Young is the only other guy.
Show,
Or no,
who's
Bryce.
at Texas
Bryce
Tech
Young
now.
is 2023, isn't he?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, I can't give you anybody other than Howell and
Yeah.
Rattler.
You've got a dude who's tiny.
But there's always. I mean, my point is that there's always
Somebody will rise.
Somebody's going to rise. They're going to be the guy that only has 1 year of production
Mhm.
and are going to be a first round pick.
It'll end up being Show because he played well following Herbert last year at Oregon, and then he transferred to Texas Tech, and they're going to make him look like a young god because he's playing in the Big 12 where they don't believe in defensive schemes. And then he'll rise, and RJ here will be able to sell 101, which will be the best looking QB in a weak class for some amount of value back. Or just take another
I
QB
feel like
and sit on it.
projecting the value of RJ's 2022 first round pick as making up for the pick that the stuff that he just sold on the cheap. Like, hey, you just sold this stuff at a discount so that you could make your team worse, so that you get a higher pick next year, which you can get good value for. I feel like is all of the pieces that he sold, he could have still sold. Not that I don't believe that he's been trying to do that, but not necessarily at a discount and still gotten that same pick next year.
Right, but
And Brett, you're right. It's look, we agree individually those pieces probably make up more than the 102. But if the market isn't willing to pay you what the item is worth, you have two options. Don't sell it or sell it for less.
Well, it's also a question of like, when do things need to be sold? Because I know Matt has been trying to sell Judy for a while and was not happy with the market that he was getting for them. And it's why does that need to happen right now? Like, now is the worst time to be trying to trade into the 2021 draft. And there's
When's
no reason.
the good time?
Never at this point. But you're like, RJ's team is not going to be good next year. Why do you feel the need to trade into the 2021 draft and instead target the 2022 or wait until after the 2021 draft and go after 2023 picks and push the can down and be able to get value for picks that people are more willing to move than the picks that they're drooling over with the players that they're already in love with?
The issue is you end up in a position like Panthers is right now, or you risk being in that position where, yeah, he's got a lot of capital in this draft, but he doesn't have a QB.
We've talked about QBs though. Like, QBs are acquirable. There are plenty of tanky, shitty teams.
When they're available, yes. But like, there's teams that just like that you look at them, you're like, okay, this is a shit team that has a QB. That doesn't mean they're going to move them.
my whole time in this league has been stuck with a shitbag quarterback, or not a shitbag quarterback, but one that I don't know what's going to happen from year to year. Like, it's Tom Brady, Cam Newton. I want somebody that I feel confident in. Wilson is that currently, with an age that I like.
I
the
bet
only
you could
other-
have gotten Herbert for that package.
I don't want Herbert. I don't believe in Herbert. Not like, I don't believe in Herbert like everybody else does. If there was one other quarterback that I was going out to buy, it was Josh Allen. And I've made enough offers in the past 2 years for Josh Allen that I'm kind of just tired of it.
I guess it's hard for me because I try not to fall in love with players specifically. I try and remain impassionate player to player. It's hard for me to imagine liking a guy that much when you don't even know where he's going to be playing. And I'm not saying you're wrong to do that, and it's enjoyable, to have your guys and go out and get your guys. It's your roster. You have the power to do that. And by all means, you can go out and do that. That is not how I tend to look at it. Not to say one way is right or wrong.
QB just ends up in a weird position where they become available at weird times for weird prices. and trying to just assume one will be available is a dangerous game, just because like you think like, oh, such and such, like you can look at teams right now and just pulling up the roster list right now. Steelers has Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan probably should be available. Does that mean he is? We don't know. He may not be. Kyle could be thinking, you know what? I don't think Matt Ryan's that old. I don't think his contract's that bad. I'm just going to extend him again and try and continue to build out my team and go from there. Because if you don't have a QB, you're kind of just fucked. So you get in a weird position where you have times where QBs just aren't available. QBs are available and it doesn't really like seem like they're available. Similar to like, I think everybody coming into this offseason knew that one of Roethlisberger, Hurts, and Herbert was going to get moved. I think if you asked everybody in the league, besides the teams that made the deal for Herbert or involving Herbert, which one of them got moved, nobody would say Herbert. So things get weird with QB to where I don't mind going and getting your guy just because of how like inconsistent it is with the QB market, whether they're available or they become untouchable, or they're like Baker Mayfield a few years ago when I traded him, his value was super low because nobody wanted to buy him. So things just it gets odd with QB to where I don't like trying to project things out with like the idea of such and such. You'll have this position that'll just be available with QB.
Sure. It's just if you're also not thinking that you're going to be competitive for another 2 years, then that's a lot of time for QB situations to change.
Yep.
Yeah. And again, it's to the Herbert conversation, kind of shifting gears here a little bit. I think that kind of caught everyone off guard there, although I wonder if it was similar, Matt, and as Niners fans, we've talked about this, to the Buckner and Armstead situation last year. One of them was going to go, but they get the 10th pick for Buckner, where Armstead, they probably would have gotten maybe a day 2 pick. So, yeah, Buckner's the better player. But, he's going to get me more than if I move Armstead. So let me move Buckner and get a top 10 pick to replace him. Or I guess it was 12. I can't remember exactly what it was. But you know what I mean. It's the same thing as, Herbert brings him back, Barkley, Mims, and a 2-round bump. Who knows what Hurts would have brought him. If he wasn't getting the top 15 pick for him, what's the point?
Gentlemen, I gotta run.
You've been summoned.
I've exceeded my time limit already. RJ, you're brave. You're bold. Nothing but love for you. Mike, I'm just gonna avoid looking at your roster for the next 6 months and hope that somehow you fuck it up.
I was about to say, don't worry, it'll change between now and then.
Yeah, come on.
Naturally. I mean, have you seen how many picks he has now back at his disposal? I was happy that he didn't have picks at his disposal. But anyway, I gotta run, guys. Enjoy the rest of your and this is how somebody else needs to join. Otherwise, we're gonna have more Vikings, Eagles, Chargers trades in like 2 hours from now.
I don't have anything to trade.
Yeah, I'm tapped.
All right, I'll see you guys.
Yeah, plus we thanks, Brad. But yeah, we do enough training as it is. So hopefully someone else does join here. Otherwise, it's just us talking. So a fun point in chat here from the 49ers. Most recent 102 quarterbacks: Josh Rosen, Haskins, Tua Tagovailoa, and now Zach Wilson. Are you at all worried about the 102 curse?
No, not really. Look at those players. Haskins and Tua were kind of like known players for at least 2 years before they came out. So that was just somebody fed into the hype. I'm sure I'm feeding into the hype with Wilson also. But he just looks more mechanically sound than some of those players.
Things also change a little bit if you look at the QBs drafted. It doesn't change for Haskins, but Rosen goes to Mayfield instead of Rosen. Not to take away from Niners' point, just that it's slightly different on that one. If you look at it in the sense of like you're looking at QB2 versus just pick 2.
I mean,
Baker's a whole lot better. But
yeah, like if I have the second pick in all 3 of those drafts, I don't take any of those quarterbacks. So like I trust my decision making more than it being a curse.
So definitely a curse. Got it.
Yeah.
Now I'm going back and looking at the 105s to see how fucked I am.
So that we should, be roasting here. We've had a bunch of mock drafts come up here. Jeremy is saying you don't take Tua at 102, liar. Hey, this sounds like something you guys should debate in the actual podcast instead of in the chat.
Yeah.
Podcast.
How about we use our mouths and look face to face instead of being little keyboard warriors, huh, Jeremy? Huh?
That's right.
Get the
Matt
kid in bed already.
Matt wants you to use your mouth on the topic, Jeremy.
Jeremy's asking, do I take Tua? Let me look at that draft. If I'm not mistaken, Herbert goes 3 in that draft.
Herbert went 3. It went Burrow, Tua, Herbert, Edwards-Helaire, Judy, Taylor, Lamb, Dobbins, Akers, Swift.
There's not a chance I take Tua. I never believed in Tua. I never no.
I mean, I would still take Tua at this point, but that's just me.
It was a lot of bias towards I couldn't pronounce his name for most of the time, but no, I just didn't. No.
One thing in chat I want to touch on really quick here is Browns asked if we could explain the nominating process again. If the email either didn't clear things up going back and reading it, basically what will happen is free agency will open. Then every team will nominate one player. You nominate that player, you put a bid for the max amount that you realistically want to pay for that player on it. Everyone has a bid in on a player. We have X amount of whatever the fuck players. 12 hours after their final bid, so whatever bid pushes them up to their peak amount, they close out. So the nomination is just you'll get one. Once the guy you nom gets won by somebody, you nominate somebody else until the commissioners say, hey, we're opening it up to X amount of nominations per people. Then it's X amount of nominations, and you just nom as your guys get one. But you just at the start, it'll just be one dude, one singular dude.
And again, you can nominate. There should be a tab under My Team that lets you go to the nomination page, or there should be a tab at the top of the league page that allows you to see off-season free agency. Going to either of those will let you look at the list of who's out there and who's ready to be either bid on, and then at the bottom of that will give you an option to make a nomination yourself. So I think MFL has actually improved the functionality to be able to limit you to how many nominations you can have at a time, so that you can basically tell, if you forget who your guy is, hey, is my guy still active? Because if he is, I can't make a nomination, and if he isn't, then I can. But as we mentioned, it's a massive cluster, and it's a lot of fun.
And Arthur, me shitting on Texas Tech, the football program, should not be a surprise to anyone at all. I like one Texas Tech QB. The rest of them all have been dog shit, and Baker Mayfield's an asshole, and he doesn't really fucking count anyways, so.
All right, well, I appreciate the roasting spirit coming through loud and clear here. Where do we go next? Do we shit on mock? Do we I'm not shit on. Do we roast mocks? Do we roast trades? What do you want to do next? RJ, you were the topic of the first one, so you can make our next selection.
I don't want to roast your new mock. I want to praise it. I think it's actually probably the best mock that I've seen.
Boring.
Lame.
I don't know how many people are going to take this serious, but everybody should probably use that as a correct rankings.
God damn it. No, don't listen to me. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Other than Trey Sermon, that's fucking bad. At 21.
Where was Trey Sermon? 21.
Yeah.
I mean, landing spot could make that look not terrible.
I mean, look, first off, I'm an Ohio State. So let's make sure that that's out there in the open to
Okay.
explain some of these things. Hence why I have Nick Bosa and Chase Young on my team. Beyond them being good players, and I went for the Ohio State guys. Secondly, um, I think NFL GMs do give a little bit more credence to how you played on the big stage and how you played recently versus everything else. And if you look at the last two games that Sermon played in a Big Ten championship game where he just rolled all over Northwestern, which was a pretty decent defense for what was it, 250 yards. Um, and then pretty much had his way with the Clemson defense to the point that they had to come up to the line, and Fields just got to throw everything over the top, and they couldn't do anything because they had to stay up to stop Sermon. Um, so despite Fields throwing for 6 touchdowns, Sermon still had a pretty good game in that game. And again, in the Natty, he went down in the first play. So basically, the last two things that they saw of Sermon were him having his way with Clemson and him having his way with Northwestern. So does that move him up to a top four running back? Probably not. Is he 5 or 6? Maybe, and that's probably a day 2 guy.
Yeah, I think after 3, I don't hate any type of like flip flopping all the way to like 12 from the running backs. It's all personal preference. You can find good and bad with every single one of them. It's just a matter of like how you feel.
My only detracting comment about this mock really is I feel like more defensive guys go.
Yeah, I actually
I
tried
don't
to
think-
roll it back from last time. I think it went too heavy on defense last time, and I probably went a little bit light here. The problem is I don't know who jumps who.
Yeah, it gets hard without knowing landing spots because there's going to be guys that play IDP positions. They're going to land in positions that people just see and like, okay, that is a good landing spot for an edge or a linebacker, and they're going to rocket up in value, and they're going to jump some of these like tier 4 and 5 wide receiver guys. And it's really hard to project out. So it's not like I can't say like, oh, you should have player X here instead of player Y because defensive value. But I think it ends up being close, but there's going to be a reasonable amount more IDP guys taken, I think.
Right. And the guys I had the toughest time on here, and I'll just kind of do like maybe 2 or 3. So where to put that second tier of the second tier of receivers, I'll call it, from basically I think it was Bateman to Waddle, or even Marshall here. Like how I ordered that tier of receivers, I had a really tough time figuring out how to do that. Really, the tight ends, where those kind of went, I think I put them in positions of need, and then the last couple defensive players. Specifically Collins and Ojulari. If Collins goes to either like the Giants or the Patriots or one of these teams who likes to kind of play with that Leo, or even one of those Leo linebacker type situations where he's not exactly a down linebacker, he's not exactly an up. You just kind of allow him his versatility. I think he jumps up. If he goes to a place that just wants to use him as a will, I think he goes down. Same kind of thing with Ojulari. If he goes to a place where he can kind of play that either Leo position or that edge, I think he keeps that position, or maybe even comes up to a pure 3-4 that's going to use him as a rush linebacker only. I think he comes down. So you're right. Landing spot's going to have a lot to do with this, and scheme's going to have a lot to do with this. But I don't know how many more defensive players would jump up, because at first I thought I didn't love this class for talent in terms of the offensive ball. But, and again, a lot of these are going to miss, but I really like 12 or 15 of these receivers.
A lot of it's going to be like those probably picks, I want to say 20 on or so, will be like those wide receivers will be taken more based off of the person making the picks preference in wide receiver archetype versus probable actual talent or like situation. Even going up in like the late teens like Marshall on probably, like all the skill position player guys there on offense. Those are all going to be like if they like a wide receiver that's big and tall and catches jump balls versus short and fast and gets separation before catching the ball. Like that's going to change a hell of a lot of like who people take where, which makes these back ends of the mocks tough because it goes from like you have these guys that you just know are good. They're the top of the class guys. They land somewhere half decent, they'll still go up here. But then once you get into the weeds of the wide receivers and the running back, it gets funky trying to figure out who goes where just based off of like not knowing like does Seahawks like that type, like do they like the Terrence Marshall type of wide receiver, or do they hate that type of wide receiver and try and take somebody else or take a tight end because they like one of the tight ends or something. It just things get funky.
Yep,
Yeah.
I agree. I like the amount of defensive players, and the selection of defensive players. I think we see the three defensive ends. I think we see Parsons, Karamoa, and Collins are probably the three best linebackers. After that, it's all landing spot dependent, so I don't expect them to be considered a top 32 option in Dynasty yet, or in fantasy in general. If they do have a good landing spot, I do think that they're really good for, like, there's a couple of them that could jump into that first round. The tight ends, I still think it's a little low on the tight ends. I think the other two tight ends are not as good as Pitts, but I think the skill gap is a lot smaller than people think.
Right. So I could see them moving up in the 20s.
Yeah.
I can't. So if I had to draw the line, I don't think I would put either tight end above Gainwell. I don't think I would put either tight end of Pay. But again, I'm higher than most on him. I could see 21 kind of being that break point. I could see basically the DNs or tight ends move up to 21, but I don't really see anyone above that. It would say, yeah, I would take a tight end over one of those guys.
Yeah. I think they're better than the second group of wide receivers, or the third, I guess you could say, after Waddle. I feel that they believe in this. They belong in the same argument as Marshall, Tony, Gainwell. I think that's about the correct spot for them.
The issue is they're still tight ends.
Right.
Yeah.
So like they could, like unless they are a top 5 tight end, you're just the value is, it's not there.
Right.
So it gets like they're good. They'll be good NFL players probably, but like even if they're not top 5 tight ends in fantasy in this league scoring, then you're kind of sitting at a wide receiver 3 or 4 in value at like absolute peak, which makes things really funky.
Well, I mean, to that point, and again, it's a good point. There's obviously a competitive advantage to the people who have that top 3 tight end, and it always seems to be 3 tight ends. Competitive advantage to having that top 3 guy. Then there's kind of the next 10 to 12, where in a league like this, you can probably get away with having that guy. Having another maybe lesser guy with him helps. But if you've got that 10 to 12, you don't need to, supplement them with a tight end by committee. But if you're not in that top 15 or that top half, you probably need 2 or 3 that could legitimately either catch a touchdown or whatever. But then you're devoting roster spots and money to a position that, as you mentioned, is not going to return a ton of points for you. But because you need to start one every week, you got to have something there, or else you're taking a 0, which you're not going to win taking a 0 at a position. And you're not going to be able to compete taking a 0 at a position each week, or taking a loss at a position each week. So it's one of those that, are they ever going to be elite? Maybe. I think Pitts has the best chance of doing so, but I absolutely see a path of Freiermuth. I really like Freiermuth, and I think Brevin Jordan really reminds me a lot of Jimmy Graham in terms of his pass catching ability. So I really like those guys. I think there's maybe even a couple later round options behind them. But to your point, they've got to be either top 5 or top 15 guys. Those are kind of the break points.
Like the gap in points per game between Kittle, who was tight end 3 at 15.9, and Mark Andrews, who's 12.59 or 5.69. Let's say that's roughly 3.5 points.
Yeah.
The gap there between those two is as big as the gap at Mark Andrews at 4, and what is this? Hayden Hurst at 20 at 9.22.
Okay.
I think that's an acceptable thought process when we are talking about trade value or we are talking about acquiring them through free agency. I don't think we're discussing Rondell Moore, not even Terrence Marshall, Kadarius Toney. I don't think we're talking about them that high as wide receivers. I think we're talking about wide receiver 3, maybe 4 at best in our league. And at that point, I think there are some people that can convince themselves to take a tight end at that spot because you aren't talking extreme high-end wide receivers.
For reference, Mark Andrews at tight end 4 would have been wide receiver 38 based on points per game between Marvin Jones and Jarvis Landry.
Right. Is Kadarius Toney gonna get anywhere near the top 32? In the league?
You're looking at like guys like Christian Kirk, Nelson Aguilar, Kiki Cutie. If you want to compare it to like the tight end guys who are going to be below Mark Andrews, because like there's not going to be that many tight ends that are scoring in that top 5 or so. So like you're let's say we'll kindly put those guys at like Hunter Henry and Noah Fant at 10 points roughly a game. Mm-hmm. So that would put them. Those tight ends would be in the wide receiver 58, 59, 60 range, which that's where guys like Mecole Hardman, Laviska Shenault, just like recent rookies who fell into like where these other picks were going, like that's where those guys came in at. So if you're assuming that tight ends do their normal tight end thing where they don't come in and light the world on fire and they take a year or two to adjust to the NFL game, you're sitting on a year of production that's going to be lower than that versus the wide receivers that come in and like, I think we can all agree that Laviska Shenault and all the Jacksonville Jaguar wide receivers didn't exactly have the best situation to succeed this year.
All right.
So like coming in and just being in a bad spot to play, Laviska still outscored most tight ends. He would have been tight end 11 in scoring. So,
no, and look, the point is simple. You've got your tiers. Your tier 1 is you have a competitive advantage at tight end because he scores like a wide receiver 1. We're going to call 3 of those every year. Then you have your next tier. It's tier 2, the acceptable scoring at tight ends because his score like a wide receiver 2 or 3. You don't need to get a stack of them, but you at least have one who scores in that range. And that's, I think it was to 20 is the point you were making, Matt. But then if you're beyond 20, like you need 2 or 3 to realistically make up the points you need from that position to compete on a week in, week out basis. Now, I don't know if we'll ever be in a position where we have more than 20 teams trying to compete at the same time, because there is the fantasy side of being able to rebuild and not have to deal with a fan base or things like that. And again, maybe at some point we try and make the league more realistic in terms of your fan base getting pissed off and firing you. Again,
definitely getting fired then.
Well, I mean, that's something that we had I almost regret saying it and putting that thought in Jeremy's head because he's the kind of guy who could be creative with that and think, okay, do I make a randomizer the same way I have holdouts to say, do you lose your job if you're, below this point, or do you have to multiple seasons below that point, or, at what point could you potentially lose your job? And then do you lose your team? Do you get put into a pool with other teams that get lost? Again, there's a lot of potential there. I don't think anyone wants to go down that rabbit hole except maybe for Jeremy, because I know he likes crazy leagues as much as I do. But there's something there. But because we don't have to worry about getting fired, we can tank, especially the way I did, and build from that. So again, it's going to be one of those where it's a competitive advantage for the people who have the top three. If you don't have a guy who's a path to a top three, then you're right, man. It's not worth it.
Yeah, it gets tight end's weird. It's not a position that I would necessarily pay for again. Like Tanyan was nice to have, but like now I've moved him into Gesicki, who I think is the better player. But like it's just I would never ever take a tight end that I don't think is going to be like bona fide superstar, like slotted into an immediately great position to produce like one of these top 3 guys, which I think realistically you could probably hit like 5 guys in that top tier. It'd be a weird league season, but I think it's possible. So like to me, it's better with those mid to late firsts. Just take shots at wide receiver, because every year there's some guy that gets taken in the late teens, early 20s that is gonna be like really they score really well. Like I got Ayuk last year, and points per game he was wide receiver 14. So and he was like pick 19 or some shit.
Yeah, 18 or 19. Yeah, of the guys I picked, he was not the one I should have traded in that Cooper deal. But you live and you learn. I made a lot of bad decisions last year.
I think for all the newer players, this is just something that needs to be emphasized. We're all going to make some type of bad move at some point. It's just a matter of if you learn from it, if you can continue. Yeah.
You know what? That's a good thing to do. So since nobody's really doing any roasting right now, I'm going to roast myself and my trades from last year, especially around draft time here, just to give people an idea of folks are looking at my team and saying, "Holy shit! Look at this NFC potential juggernaut." Let me give you guys an idea of some of the moves I made last year. So going back to the beginning of last offseason.
While you pull that up, Mike, I want to say on RJ's point, though, like if you make a bad deal, you don't have to immediately go into the situation of like you have to make one big, great winning trade to make up for it. Like just you can make small little adjustments to make winning moves here and there to like build back from that, right?
Right. So again, let's start at the top here. So I had the 101 last year. I traded that for Nate Geary, the 106, the 117, and a 406. Again, looking at that quarterback class, really does the 106. So 106 was what? J.K. Dobbins, and I think the Ayuk for Joe Burrow. Does that really make that up for you? Probably not. Then I turned around and traded Kyler Murray, Chris Godwin, and the 335 for Jaguar King, 102, 108, and 111. So I basically traded a pretty set position, maybe similar to what RJ is going to have next year, for a bunch of draft picks. And not even as good of draft picks necessarily as I had before. But hey, I had a bunch of them. Then, let's see, I know I made much, much worse deals after that. The Washington deal. This is the worst deal I've probably ever made. No, second worst deal I've ever made. Giving up Gardner Minshew, Dalvin Cook, Tyreek Hill, Justin Watson, and a 231 for Teddy Bridgewater, Saquon, the 124 and 127. So let's put that in perspective. To go from Minshew and Bridgewater, who are both substandard starting quarterbacks, and adding an extra $20 million, and to go from Cook to Barkley, which was actually a downgrade last year, I went from Hill to the 124 and Watson in the 231 to the 127.
Not bad.
That's a loss all around. So I would almost, I could argue that that is a worse trade, or maybe a more lopsided trade than anything that's happened in the last couple of weeks here.
Uh, I think the Herbert trade's pretty fucking terrible, personally. And I'll get once you're done roasting yourself, I can get into that one.
All right, and then moving through, there's for Amari Cooper, I gave up Brandon Ayuk, Justin Simmons, and a 308 to Chargers. So let's put this in perspective. Last year, Amari Cooper put up 232 points. Pretty good year. Ayuk put up 194. Simmons put up 186. And we'll figure out what happened with that 308. But basically, I'm pretty sure you doubled me up in points for what you got from that package versus what I got.
That one was a case of you couldn't hold on to Simmons because you couldn't trade him, so you thought you just wanted to get everything that you could out of him. And I think I remember you being really down on Ayuk.
No, so I really liked Cooper, and Simmons I got as a franchise tag, thinking he was going to be worth more than I think it was the 231 I gave up for him. But after that, my trades ended up going the other direction. But if you look at especially the Ayuk deal and the Cook and Reek deal, and then obviously the Kyler, the Godwin, and everything that Falcons got, if you look at the teams that did really well last year, I had a pretty good hand in helping set them because I made some pretty bad deals.
Well, that's one of the like added.
Recover.
That's one of the added benefits that like people don't get to talk about. Like I made a trade yesterday and I just got to like firmly like plant my flag on who I'd like to see compete. I mean, not that it played a large role in it, but just the amusement of going, I actually have control over where these assets go.
Yeah, sort of a kingmaker role.
Right. It does nothing but, I don't know, help like build my ego in in a season where I'm not competing. I don't know. But I believe Mike's made mention of that before. Like he has gone through and like who do I want to pick to be a competitor this year? And
and it wasn't even who I was going to make a competitor. It was my plan last year was I did not think I had enough to compete last year. This is the year I was going to start actually trying to compete because I had pieces, but I didn't think I had enough of a package to get through the NFC North, especially we've talked
The
about
Bears.
Goose and Andy's done a great job of that team since he's taken it over. But that team was just so deep and so strong. You needed to put up mid to high 200s if you wanted to beat them. So I didn't think I had a team that could do that. And if I didn't have a team that could do that, I needed to keep building until I felt like I did. So again, that's going to be what a team's going to look at in the AFC West. They're going to look at it and say, hey, until I have a team that can put up enough points to beat Matt, I need to keep building.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I've talked too much. I've roasted myself. That was my turn. Matt, you wanted to talk about the Herbert trade?
What the fuck does Dolphins do next year when Hurts is replaced and Roethlisberger finally dies from some arm-related injury of not being able to throw the duck further than 15 yards? Like, I honest to God do not understand why the fuck you would trade Justin Herbert out of those three quarterbacks. I don't care that you're getting back Barkley. Like Mike brought up a point earlier about like you trade the guy that nets you the better return. Like, yeah, that's all fine and great, but at the end of the day, like, okay, now you've put yourself in a position where you are depending on Jalen Hurts, who looked okay at times last year, but also looked dog shit terrible at some points. That is in a position where the front office of that team is literally saying, we need to make trades and acquisitions in this draft specifically to make Jalen Hurts look good. When you're having a team say that they need to do that for their QB, that's not good. when you have a QB that you're having to actively like say, we need to build around this guy so he looks good, not great, not fantastic, not taking this offense to another level, when it's just so he can look good, that's bad. That is really bad. So at what point do you realize like, hey, I've got Herbert, who's on a rookie deal. He's obviously a very good QB. He's in the AFC West in real life where they're going to be in fucking shootouts because none of those teams play defense. That you now move on from him to acquire Barkley and what else was it? Denzel Mims, and you move your 324 up to 213. Is whatever defensive player you take at 213 Barkley and a wide receiver that could reasonably be replaced this year and just moved on from in a somewhat limited role type deal in the Jets worth like deciding you're going to gamble on Jalen Hurts as your QB of the future? Like, I mean, I guess he's on $1 million contract if he doesn't lose his job next year. But like, I don't get it. You have stability at the most important position, and you throw it away for a running back you're gonna have to pay $30 million to in a year. Like,
I would have actually I'd almost argue that Hurts on that contract might net a little bit more than Herbert and the way he's playing, because in what, 2 years, 3 years, you're gonna have to pay Herbert, and that's
like it just gets fucky because like I don't see how you sell Herbert there and you don't just try and sell Hurts to some team that believes in him for whatever godforsaken reason. And like this is pure greed and not actually reading the field of what the fuck is happening in Philadelphia and what Jalen Hurts actually is as a QB.
So I'm going to completely disagree with you guys. So I have liked Jalen Hurts for Philly since they drafted him. I think he has the intangibles and the leadership abilities that you need to succeed in Philadelphia. You need a certain amount of FU. This is my job. I'm going to do it. And you need a certain amount of humility that goes with that, because that's what the city needs in terms of personality. Wentz was never going to be that guy. Wentz was the aw shucks and then talk behind the scenes, and that locker room turned on him like that. So what was Hurts last year? Everyone wanted to give Wentz a pass because of the dog shit he was playing with. Frankly, I think that entire coaching staff needed a enema in the worst way. They were not playing to Wentz's strengths. They were not setting him up for success. To your point, Matt, it's we need to make Hurts look good. Guess who else? The last two coaches who had a young quarterback in that position and decided that they needed to sign the people they took to make their quarterback look good? The Bills and the Ravens. And how do Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson look? Okay.
I mean, don't get me started on Lamar Jackson because I'm not a fan of his.
So let me put this straight. If you could get 80% of Lamar Jackson,
I don't think you get
Hurts,
even 80%.
But if you could,
I mean, can you squeeze oil out of a rock? You could.
Normally, where you get oil from, you drill down, and rocks have turned into oil. So yeah,
I think there's a non-zero chance that Hurts becomes every bit of Lamar Jackson, production-wise, not the same type of player.
Right. So again, different players. Hurts is going to pass it more than he's just going to run it. He's a little bit more power than Lamar is. He's probably closer in terms of his running ability to Cam Newton than he is to Lamar Jackson.
Right.
My point is, you have a player with a unique set of skills. You need to build the offense and build the people you have there around him. To your point, is Jalen Hurts ever going to be a top 20 quarterback in this league? No. Let's look at teams who have won the title or come damn close recently. Jimmy Garoppolo is not a top 20 quarterback. Joe Flacco is the most famous situation of a not top 20 quarterback who won you a title.
That goes back to your whole Philly point, though, of you have to have the toughness and shit. If Philly has a shit QB, what the fuck are those fans gonna do? Are they just gonna sit by me like, oh well, we don't have a top 20 quarterback, but we have a good enough team anyways? No, they're gonna fucking shit on the QB and go ape shit.
They're gonna shit on the quarterback regardless.
Yeah, they're gonna take it to a whole new level. And I'm sorry, but the last time I checked, having a QB that can take shit doesn't actually do anything when it's on the football field. It just means that they can like not get butthurt at the media and talk behind the coach's back or whatever the fuck that Wentz did.
Well, I mean,
So who was the last quarterback that Philly rallied behind?
Donovan McNabb.
Nick, Big Dick
Foles.
Nick.
Big Dick Nick. So who's a better quarterback? Jalen Hurts? Or
Playoff Nick.
Foles?
But playoff Nick sucked in the regular season, as we've seen repeatedly. So yeah, I guess if he just sucks dick through the regular season and then they make the playoffs and he turns into fucking whatever Big Dick Hurts or whatever you want to call him, like if he turns into that, sure, the people of Philly will love him. But if
I
they
need that
don't
as a
make the
t-shirt.
playoffs,
Quick aside, I need that as a t-shirt. I need Big Dick Hurts on a t-shirt, and need to start selling that, and that's going to pay our league dues for a while.
but
Yeah.
if honest to God, like if he just sucks next season, which like he played great against the Cardinals and he played pretty well against the Saints in his limited snaps. But then he shit the bed against the Cowboys, man. The Cowboys.
I mean,
I don't even know if it was Ben DiNucci at that point, but he went 21 of 39 with 2 interceptions against the fucking Cowboys.
Yeah.
the Cowboys have who got those interceptions?
Oh my God, you're gonna actually make me look this up.
Because the Cowboys
16.
have like quality defensive.
Don't even talk to me about saying the Cowboys have anything of quality on that defense. That defense is fucking
Are
cheap.
you serious?
Yes.
Jalen
So-
Smith is not of any quality.
He's pretty good, but he doesn't have those interceptions.
So
Jalen Johnson is not good.
Here's my point. There's
whatever.
every chance that you're 100% right that Jalen Hurts is a backup role and honestly out of the league in 2 years. He's probably got 2 years before Hurts fully loses that job at $1 million a pop to go make a run at this thing. In that time, he's going to have to re-up Barkley. He's going to have to pay a bunch of other people. He's got Keenan Allen that he's paying a shitload to right now. That he's probably not going to go to franchise next year. This year is his window. So if he's got to make a sacrifice to make this year his window in the AFC West, that's what he did. And Barkley and Mims aren't terrible assets to build around. And by that slim chance that Hurts actually makes it work, he's never going to be a 70% completion quarterback, but maybe if he's Kaepernick levels of completion percentage, that's pretty solid offense.
It was Trevon Diggs and Anthony Brown.
Both pretty decent cornerbacks.
Sure, but like that is a 6-9 Cowboys team that beat them 37-17.
No team in the NFC East was good last year.
Yeah, they all sucked.
Yeah, we're not saying that. We're
Everyone's
not
dog
trying to
shit.
tell you that like the Cowboys should be in contention for a Super
No.
Bowl.
They're not, but like
I'm just pointing out the fact that he got exploited by other talented players on defense. It's not like he just made terrible decisions the whole time. He got picked off by 2 good cornerbacks. Like he didn't get picked off by random nobodies that were just at the right place at the right time when he just throws a shit ball.
I mean, I don't know if I'd say Anthony Brown's a good quarterback or good cornerback looking at some of these stats here.
Mediocre at best.
Yeah.
But still
He accumulated 50% of his interceptions from that one pick.
that season.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's good enough to play to start in the NFL.
Yeah.
So he's not,
Diggs is fine though, but
right.
Anthony Brown he's something.
Somebody else is going to pay him and give him a starting job.
A lot of people are going to pay a lot of people this offseason. Does mean they should get.
Yeah,
the
that
jobs they
interception accounted for 1/6 of his career interceptions. So he's not exactly a ball hawk out here.
No.
All right, so let's go ahead and see if there are other things that need to be brought up in terms of roasting or otherwise. RJ, let's go back to your mock here because I I like the first half of it. Although, hold on, wait, no, that was
be right back.
Panthers mock. So the thing I'll say about Panthers mock, and he's a new owner, and I think he's still getting to understand a good bit of the league, is one of the things that he did was probably overvalue running back in this draft. He's got Najee Harris, Kenneth Gainwell, and Travis Etienne going before the first wide receiver comes off the board. To put it in perspective, I'm pretty sure Lamb and Judy were off the board before Dobbins last year. So, and any of the other running backs other than Jonathan Taylor, because I'm a huge homer.
And Clyde and CEH.
You're right. So that being said, you're probably going to see a much heavier influence on receivers because we only have to start one running back versus starting two receivers. So I love the fact that you went multiple rounds and you went pretty in depth on things. But one of the things to keep in mind is running backs are important. Wide receivers are going to get higher value, probably especially in this draft. So when you do 2.0, keep that in mind. So just going through yours here. So I won't go kind of on the tie breaking due to positional need versus another another spot that I think might be more talented. I'm more curious in terms of when you get to the 20s in your draft.
Mhm.
Tutu Atwell and Chuba Hubbard over Terrence Marshall. Like, are you just that far down on Marshall?
No, I really like Terrence Marshall. I think Tutu is a landing spot dependent slot wide receiver of the highest quality. So I think if he falls into a place that is in need of a slot wide receiver, I think he has the potential of just being force-fed short yardage targets. And I think that could be very valuable in this league. What pick was that? That was 21, you said?
Yeah.
It's also a Panthers pick. So I feel like he has such a vast amount of picks, he probably doesn't want to continue redundancy at wide receiver. Because if I'm not mistaken, I mocked him for a wide receiver that is similar to Terrence Marshall earlier in it.
Yeah, the guy who was going to be yours, Kadarius Toney.
Right. So that was just not taking the same archetypal receiver twice.
So then a big difference that I had in my mock versus where you had him in yours was Rondale Moore. Definitely undersized, but just super athlete. I had him at 13 in my 2.0. You had him at 25 in your 1.0. Behind Brevin Jordan, Cormoa, Atwell, Hubbard, a bunch of these guys. Is it just you kind of see him a tier lower maybe than I do, or what's your thought?
Keep in mind, I have my own like personal rankings next to him. I have him at wide receiver 6, so I do have him over players that go before him, like Marshall and Atwell. Yeah. I personally think Moore is probably a better NFL wide receiver. I just think it's easy to look at him and not necessarily like the height and just move on.
Okay, that's fair. And then let's see. Yeah, I really can't crap on anyone beyond that. Although you also have Trask over Kellen Mond.
Huge mistake on my part. I'll probably fix that whenever I update my draft. I had looked at some film, and I liked Trask over Mond, and then after I finished that, I just watched a whole lot more film and realized that Trask probably doesn't even deserve a job in the NFL.
He's going to get a shot. I mean, all these
he'll definitely get a shot.
Yeah. But
imagine having me taking not Mac Jones at 105.
Yeah, because Mac Jones was gone at 105.
Yeah.
No, I'm looking at Mr. RJ's mock here.
That's true.
Hey.
He's got me taking a fucking tight end. What the fuck
thought-
is this?
I thought you were just gonna like outthink everybody, take best player available. Everybody was gonna question it. You're just gonna go, I'm better than you, stop questioning it. And
Hey
then-
man, I'm gonna take whoever the best player is available at 105, and it's not even gonna be close. And that's how I'll just be better than people.
I think your response, if you do take Pitts, should just be, how many championships have you been in? You know, just dig around in the old phrases of Goose box and
I
pull
mean,
one out.
but that
I-
gets immediately slammed with Brett saying, "But how many of you won?"
No,
And I just fucking curl up in a ball and die.
Well, I mean,
Just-
that's why I was thinking that, at 103, that's where you should really see, Bengals get creative. Since he's won a title and, is constantly in that championship hunt, you really need to take a quarterback there. Right? Let's have fun with it. Roll with Jeff Driscoll and take Kyle Pitts at 3.
Bengals is falling off though. He's old. The future's now, old man.
I did compliment him in my mock. I said that he is one with Mitch, so like I have faith in him producing a really competitive season with no quarterback, because that basically was a season without a quarterback.
Actually, that run was probably Mitch Trubisky's best performance. So I think that was 2019.
Yeah.
Let me pull that up here.
That was his Pro Bowl year.
So we had Stafford at that point, but that's
No,
right.
was it-
This was before rollover that he'd done the trade to Colts. So from week 10 on, Trubisky 21, 11, 20, 27, 37, 18, 7
Yep.
points per game.
He could probably just do that with Driscoll.
I mean, the rest of the season outside of that, there were 2 20-point games. Everything else was single digits, including a half a point game against the Vikings. I think he got injured that game, but that said, you want to talk about lightning in a bottle, that pretty much defines it.
My wish list for this, now that you're saying it, is that he takes best player available, best non-quarterback player available. You at some point end up shipping one of your on the hot seat quarterbacks to Washington, and then Washington gets rid of Brady because he's just old and ends up sending him to Bengals. So he gets just one more year of a quarterback, and he's still in the hunt next year for one.
Hey, Brady's going to get extended. I would be more than happy to acquire Brady if I could.
No, I'm saying Bengals acquires Brady. I'm saying
Oh.
you just somehow end up like shipping off Drew Lock to Washington just so they have some type of a quarterback.
I somehow facilitate the trade.
Right.
That sounds like something I do. And until, of course, Chris says, wait, I know you're trying to make this trade happen. What if I make a different trade?
Yep. And then he trades Jeff Driscoll for I don't know, Sam Darnold, and Darnold somehow keeps his job.
That would have been a situation of him trading Jeff Driscoll for I don't know, Josh Allen.
Yeah, if Josh Allen gets moved in the near future, I'm probably going to be really upset.
Some side note roasting. The Buccaneers, the Washington football team, the Dolphins. Yeah, all you people that said you were coming to this.
I mean, I think they're watching. They can come to it. They didn't participate. I thought they were going to
that
participate.
was the whole point of saying you were going, was like getting on here and talking some shit.
Yeah, you can't really roast anybody. I'm not going to roast somebody that can't at least respond in some capacity. And,
The only reason I roasted Dolphins is because I know he'd either laugh at it or not take it like personally.
And again, that's the entire point of this.
Yeah.
It's a be nice or lose situation. I don't think anyone's getting nasty in any of this stuff. Let me
I
think.
just wanted to hear people tell me I'm dumb.
Yeah, seriously. I was exciting.
was a bad trade. What are you doing? You're upsetting the balance of the league.
Yeah, I imagine you probably got some good DMs on that. I appreciate that Brett made the time, even though he had other commitments tonight, to come on and defend his take. But yeah, I'm just going back up to kind of see who else.
You could roast the Cardinals trade at the end of the first last year. I don't want to do it because I'm involved in it, and I feel like that'd be rude. But it's a hindsight bad trade.
What did you trade? What did you trade for that pick?
I traded Jordan Howard and something for Gibson, basically.
Oh yeah. Oof.
Jordan Howard and Muhammad Sanu.
So 2 unemployed guys.
Let's see who all hated this trade at the morning here. Brett, but he defended himself. WFT, basically, if the first wasn't included. Browns, but I think he made his voice mention. I think he was a no on the RSVP. Chris, I'm lumping you in with Bill now, RJ. You are both on probation. I don't know what probation means, Bill, RJ, but you are on probation.
Okay.
But again, he wouldn't tell me if that meant double secret or triple public or what kind of probation that was.
I wish I was on probation for like a week and they just disabled all of my trades and you guys couldn't, and like half of the league couldn't send me the shit offers that they do. Like there are countless offers that I could have accepted and gotten the same response that like other people have offered me. So
yeah, but it's their offers, RJ, so it's okay.
Do you know how many?
As long as I don't get the players.
Do you know how many thirds I've declined for? I declined for Zadarius Smith when everybody knew damn well that I wasn't going to take the 232. And then they want to message me like, "Well, what's it going to take?" Not that.
I do enjoy that. You were literally offered in a what was it? Restricted free agent, or was that a transition tag?
It was a transition tag.
A transition tag. You were offered a better pick than they were offering.
Yeah, I could roast a lot of trade offers. I just don't want to publicly do it. Or I prefer them to be here to defend themselves.
No, and those are ground rules. It's, at least those are my ground rules. I don't trade shame others unless they mention that it's okay to open the trade up for public consumption.
I'll trade shame. I think that's well known. If it's like some horribly terrible shit, I'll trade shame. But
yeah, but that's just the policy.
Yep. I will criticize any trade just because I don't mind sharing my opinion, and I hope everybody can learn from it. And I also don't take this stuff like very seriously. We, like, at the end of the day, it's fantasy football. We're in a pretend football league. The only thing that's real about it is the statistics that the players that we own accumulate.
Yep, that is 100% true. So. All right, let me think. Do you guys have anything else any other grievances you want to air about trades, mock drafts?
No, I'm just here to shit talk all the people that don't ever come on the pod, aka the other 29 owners in the league, minus Brett sometimes.
I mean, hey, look. Before we jump too far that neck, I did upgrade the podcasting thing here because we couldn't fit more than 6 people on, and we got, what was it, 8, 10? I don't remember.
And then they never came back. They've never come back. Come on more often, people. I can only talk so much.
It was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, that was also like 4 pods ago, though.
Maybe I had too many pods.
No such thing.
No. I enjoy this league way too much. I have no problem talking about it multiple times a week.
I look at it as a public service. We keep ourselves entertained and keep ourselves sane. We give other people some entertainment. It gets put into podcast form or whatever to allow Chris to listen to it on the road, so he has things to yell at other than the same music he's probably heard thousands of times at this point. I mean, it's we're saving the world here.
Look, if my dumbass can make it to the Super Bowl in this league, anybody can.
Yep.
I am
I couldn't agree more.
perpetually a bad owner on my other leagues. So if I can win in here, any of you people can.
Yeah.
You just have to acquire George Kittle for sub $2 million and acquire Patrick Mahomes early on in his career and have him for under $20 million for a couple years, and then just hit on a bunch of other shit and just don't miss. But you too can do it.
Continuously draft the Antonio Gibson of every draft.
Yeah. Flip your one old wide receiver one for a new wide receiver one and a safety one.
God, I remember that whole conversation too. It wasn't even your call on Gibson. It was somebody else brought Gibson to your attention, and you're like, "Oh, this guy's really good. I should trade up for him." And here you are with Antonio Gibson so cheap.
Yep. I don't even remember who brought him up to me, and then I binge watched like 6 hours of tape. On it wasn't total 6 hours of me sitting there. It was me watching tape sped up and then slowing it down and looking back at shit. But it was like 6 total hours worth of tape in like 3.5 or some shit. And I just tried trading up for all of those fucking picks until I finally got it out of Cardinals and was able to get Gibson. And now I am big happy.
I did that with Darrington Evans last year, and now you are the proud owner of him.
Well, hopefully he becomes like Gibson.
I could see it.
I mean, considering your track record, I don't see any other solution.
Well, I didn't draft him, so he doesn't have my blessing, which makes things weird. Which was why I was trying to trade away Judy for a pick.
Alrighty then. All right, that's an hour and 20 minutes. Unless anyone else is going to join here, I think we're going to go ahead and close this one down. We'll call the first pod roast a partial success, since not nearly enough roasting took place outside of the self-inflicted. We'll have to find another time when everyone's a little bit more of a commentary mood. Maybe it's going to be a little bit closer to the draft. Maybe it's going to take another crazy trade. I don't know if I can.
I think this would be. I think the roast idea would be a great thing to do when we do our marathon pod during the first day of draft.
I think you're right. All right. So, Matt, any closing thoughts? Any last minute, dings you want to take?
Well, just more people get on the fucking pod, all right? I like listening to myself talk, but I don't like listening to myself talk that much.
I think we can all agree with that. RJ?
Yep, I completely agree. Other than that, I'm good. I'm happy I have the number 2 pick. What do I have to complain about?
I've been meaning to send you an offer for that. All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening. I hope you guys enjoy this as much as we like recording it. Have a good evening. I'm pretty sure this is going to be it for the week, unless one of you guys gets crazy and makes a really fun trade, in which point, who knows? We got nothing else to do. I'll sit in a hotel room, Anyways, have a good night, and we'll talk to you guys later.